Hello, beautiful internet family. Dan here from DansTube.TV, as well as the Fearless Drone Academy podcast. And today we're talking about the potential of a brand new mini drone from DJI by the end of this year, by the end of 2021. Is it going to happen? Who knows? Well, we're going to be talking about all the rumors, all the possibilities and potential for a DJI Mini 3 or potentially a DJI Mini 2S, which is probably the more likely option here. Now, we did recently see the release of a brand new drone, which is the Mini SE, this little guy here, and it's kind of a combination of the Mini 2 as well as the Mavic Mini. Now, it's got the wind resistance of the Mini 2, but basically the body of the Mavic Mini. Now, it doesn't have 4K like the Mini 2, but it does have an improved build quality, and like I said, that improved wind resistance, as well as the batteries and charging hub from the Mini 2. Now, the Mini SE is only available in select few countries, which is very interesting and makes me think it is very possible that we might see a brand new Mini 2, a Mini 3 or a Mini 2S by the end of this year, potentially the beginning of next year. When it comes to DJI releases, we normally get the product announced and all over the internet months in advance. And with the Mini 3, we haven't had too much just yet, which makes me think either they've done a phenomenal job of hiding this brand new product or it's not ready just yet. Now, when it comes to the production line, when a drone goes into that mass production stage or phase, normally that's where we see a leaked or a early released kind of shot of a model of a drone, whether that's the body of the drone, whether that's the fully finished product itself, whether we see a controller or maybe even like a close-up of the camera or something like that. We seem to get those nice early announcements, which is kind of crazy to think that we get that nice and early. We sometimes get it like months in advance. Now, look at this prototype here. This is on Reddit, and this is potentially a Mini 3 prototype. Now, if we have a look at the Mini SE, for example, it looks very similar. Now, there are a few differences. We potentially have either some sensors on the back here or some ventilation, some air intake. So we do have an air intake on the back here of the Mini SE and all the other mini drones. So potentially that could just be additional air intakes on the side. On the Mini 2, there was actually a light at the front here, and on this prototype here, it looks like in the middle there, that's potentially another air intake. Now, I will get into all of the potential options, the potential possibilities of what the Mini 3 or the Mini 2S might feature, but the one clear thing that I would expect would be front-facing sensors. And the reason I say that is because I think we're going to see ActiveTrack. I really do think that the next Mini release is going to have ActiveTrack. You know, we've had the Mavic Mini with that SDK released into the wild, and then we've had, you know, DroneLink and Litchi actually release ActiveTrack and waypoint options. Now that, to me, is one of those things that everyone is calling for. Everyone wants that. And if the Mini 3 or the Mini 2S, whatever they want to call it, if that's going to feature ActiveTrack, they probably want some form of obstacle avoidance on it. So potentially at the front of the drone, potentially at the front of this little prototype here, where the two kind of air intakes are there at the front, they could actually be obstacle avoidance sensors. And then obviously we need some form of air intake to cool down the internals. So that middle little grill there, that little kind of scoop that we have on top of this prototype, could potentially be an air intake to cool down the internals. So this prototype, again, who knows if this is real, if this is anything at all. It is a really clean prototype, and I love the look of it. But, you know, it's just hard to tell right now. Normally we get some sort of like, you know, body release or something a little bit more grounded in reality. So just to have a look at the competition right now. So from Hubsan, they've actually announced and released the Xeno Mini Pro. Now this drone has some crazy claims. It has it doesn't look as clean. It really still looks like a bit of a toy drone, but you know, it does have some crazy claims. You know, they're saying up to 40 minutes of flight time. Like, that's insane. Apparently it's got 3-direction obstacle avoidance. It's got 10 kilometers of range. It's got an improved CMOS sensor on it, and a ton of other features that I'll get into soon, as well as a 48 megapixel sensor, which again is insane, and then up to 200 megabytes per second for the video bitrate, compared to 100 megabytes per second on the Mini 2. So again, crazy wild claims, but if that is DJI's direct competition in that Mini space, they really need to bring the heat with their Mini 3. So let's just kind of start from this section here. So this is Drones Gator. Really, there aren't too many leaks or too many people talking about the Mini 3 just yet, which makes me think, you know, if it is going to come out, it's potentially going to be at the end of this year. It's going to be around that November timeframe to target that Christmas market, that holiday market. And if we don't see it around that timeframe, we potentially might see the Mavic 3 Pro or the Pro 3, the DJI Pro 3. So we might see that by the end of 2021, and then the beginning of next year is when we will most likely see the Mini 3. And I say that purely because these leaks come out thick and fast normally. Potentially it could have been covered up nicely, but it's just hard to say whether it's actually going to be a real thing. There's just nothing on the internet just yet about it, which is interesting. So through Drones Gator, they've actually spoken about some of the possibilities and the potential options here. I've had a look through the internet, tried to find some other information, try to compare it to the Mini 3 competition, which is that Hubsan Xeno Pro Mini, the Xeno Mini Pro, and just kind of had a bit of, I guess, reflecting myself on how DJI normally move, what their release cycle normally looks like. Now, through Drones Gator, they're saying a 4K 60 FPS camera. They're also saying a 34-minute flight time compared to that 31-minute flight time that we saw on the Mini 2. Potentially a 10 to 12 kilometer range. So on the Mini 2, we saw a range of 10 kilometers, and also obstacle avoidance, which I genuinely believe is the clear thing that we need to have. That's the clear feature that we need with the Mini 3. That's the one thing that everyone wants. They want obstacle avoidance and ActiveTrack. So that's something that I would love to see on the Mini 3. So first comes first, let's have a quick look on the Xeno Mini Pro. So we can scroll down here and we can see that the sensor is actually a 1/1.3 inch sensor. And they're showing you a slight difference here. They're showing you the comparison between what that looks like compared to a 1/2.6 inch sensor. Now, the Mini 2, for example, has a sensor of, it's a 1/2.3 inch sensor. So that's on the Mini 2. And I would imagine that DJI would want to compete with what Hubsan are offering. So you would imagine they would do the same. They would do a 1/1.3 inch sensor, and that would significantly improve the quality. And then on top of that, the video bitrate is something that we will probably see an improvement on as well. So instead of that 100 megabits per second, we'll probably see 120 megabits per second. Now again, Hubsan have gone with that 200 megabits per second, as well as 48 megapixels for photos. That's just insane to me, and it seems like a little bit of, I guess they're trying to sell it. They're trying to put these massive figures on and trying to make it sound amazing. Is it realistic? Is it actually 48 megapixels, like effective megapixels? Is it really, you know, what they're saying here? Is it really 200 megabits per second? It's hard to say. That's something I would really love to test personally. But I mean, for the progression, like from the Mini 2 to the Mini 3 or the Mini 2S, for example, I feel like we're going to see probably not 48 megapixels. That would be insane. That's what they've got on some of their higher end prosumer drones. But I'd imagine it would go up to a 24 megapixel sensor. So on the, like all of the Mini drones, the Mavic Mini, the Mini SE, as well as the Mini 2, it's a 12 megapixel sensor. So they're going to have to improve on that. And I'd imagine with that improvement, with that 1/1.3 inch CMOS sensor, which I would imagine the Mini 3 is going to have, I'd imagine they're also going to go with a bump up, an improvement in the megapixel count. So it should be a 24 megapixel sensor. That makes the most sense. That's the natural progression to offer consumers something a little bit better than what they've already got. So, you know, a slightly improved sensor, slightly improved stills when it comes to capturing photos. And then when it comes to video, now the Mini 2 can already shoot 4K 30, which is phenomenal. And you can see the Xeno Mini Pro 4K 30. You know, if that was 4K 60, then maybe DJI would really try to push that. I feel like it's probably more realistic for DJI to go with, let me just load this one up so I can show you some of the specs here. So there we go. So that's the 4K. So actually, we'll show you this one. So you can see in this mock-up here, it actually looks like a similar sensor to what we saw. Like, we're looking at the mock-up here for people listening to the podcast. The mock-up of the Mini 3 has actually got a sensor that looks remarkably similar to the Osmo Pocket sensor. And the Osmo Pocket 2 can shoot 4K 60, but are they going to push that? Are they going to offer something that on paper sounds like it's matching some of their other prosumer drones? It's hard to say. Like, if their direct competition, the Hubsan drone, only does 4K 30, they're probably not going to do that. It's unlikely that they're going to push it to 4K 60. So I'd imagine 4K 30 is still going to be the standard with the Mini 3. But then what I would imagine is, like I said before, the bit rate will increase, which will actually be a significant improvement, from 100 megabits per second to 120 megabits per second. That's still an improvement, and you're still going to see smoother video. And with an improved sensor as well, the quality will improve. So that would make the most sense to me. That slight increase, that slight improvement to make the Mini 3 or Mini 2S stand out over the Mini 2, because they don't want to release something that's such a small incremental upgrade that people just think, well, I don't need to get it. Like, I've got the Mini 2, why would I bother upgrading to this? So to me, that would make the most sense. Now, when we look at the controller, this is the controller of the Mini 2. And it has a range of 10 kilometers. So that's phenomenal. And that's what the Hubsan Xeno Mini Pro is offering as well, that 10 kilometer range. Now, it is OcuSync 2.0 on the Mini 2. We might see OcuSync 3.0 potentially, or they might just keep it the same. It might literally just be OcuSync 2.0 with 10 kilometers of range, or they may bump it to OcuSync 3.0 with that 12 kilometers of range. Again, who knows with that? It's really hard to say without like any definitive kind of evidence right now. But what I would imagine would make the most sense is, going from a 720p live view, which is what you get directly to your phone, they'll probably bump it up to a 1080p live view. So that improvement in quality, that improvement in transmission to your actual phone, does really make a big difference, like in terms of seeing what the image looks like, setting up the shot, figuring out the framing. Like, having that improvement in quality directly to your phone actually is probably one of the more significant improvements that I would prefer over the range. I would prefer that 1080p live view over 12 kilometers of range, for example. So 10 kilometers of range with 1080p live view would be phenomenal. Whether we see OcuSync 3.0 or not, who knows at this point. Also, as we look through DronesGator, they're saying that it potentially could be released in August or September. So we're in August, and again, there's no definitive leak. There's nothing clear. We haven't seen a body. We've literally only seen prototypes. No one's really reporting it in the drone world. So it's hard to say. I really don't think that will be the case. It will probably get pushed into, late 2021, like I said, November potentially, or whether we see it at the beginning of next year. Again, these are all rumors. This is all speculation. None of this is fact. None of this is real right now. But we know that DJI want to tap into that budget market even deeper, and it's clearly one of their most profitable markets. So potentially by the end of this year would make some sense. Like the Mini 2 was released last year, so it's been a year since they've released something. The Mini SE, like I showed you before, this has only been released in select few countries. It's not a worldwide release. It's like a rebranded drone with some slight improvements. So the fact that they haven't heavily marketed this makes me think, well, maybe they didn't want to push it too much before the release of a new mini drone, which again could potentially be November, I would imagine November 2021, or Q1 of 2022, which could be January, February time. Again, all speculation. It's hard to say. I'd love to know in the comments below, though, like what you guys would expect to see from DJI. Are they going to release the Pro 3, or are they going to release the Mini 3? Or both of them? That would be insane if they released both of them before the end of the year. Again, who knows? They do have a fair bit of power in the drone market. They really could do that. Now, moving on to, I guess, some of the other features that we could expect. So I think the clear things, so we've spoken about the range, we've spoken about the OcuSync, we've spoken about the camera. I think the next most plausible thing would be battery life. So I think we will see a slight improvement here. 31 minutes on the Mini 2 is phenomenal, and you can't complain about that. That's phenomenal battery life, really nice work there. But I think they will try to improve that again. It really does depend though, because if they've got sensors on the drone, if they've got a slightly improved, if they've got that obstacle avoidance sensor, on the front-facing obstacle avoidance. If they've got an improved camera system, that's obviously going to zap a bit more battery life. So to improve it a little bit more is a possibility, but that might not be realistic. You know, we might see 35 minutes, we might see 34 minutes, we might even just see like a slight increase to 32 minutes over the 31 minutes on the Mini 2. But if they could keep it at that 30-minute mark, that will be phenomenal regardless, as long as it's not going down, I guess, at this point. That's the thing that a lot of people would probably be mad about if the battery life actually went down from 31 minutes to, let's say, 28 minutes or 30 minutes. So I think they're going to definitely go for the 31 minutes, potentially push it up to 35 minutes. Now, like I said before, we'll go back to this photo here. Yeah, this little section here where we had the air intakes on the previous Mini drones, it makes so much sense for them to have front-facing obstacle avoidance. Now, at this point, the mass production that DJI have got going on with all their drones, they can definitely get those parts at a nice cheap price so that the drone itself doesn't increase in value significantly. Now, it could be a Mini 2S, and it could be a slight improvement if it had everything almost the same, but it had front-facing sensors and it had ActiveTrack. I think people would go wild for that. People would absolutely love that. So many people are asking for that. So I think people would be happy with like that slight improvement, but we know that DJI like to push the boundaries a lot of the time. Sometimes they say quite, I guess, careful and just keep it as a basic upgrade. But, you know, if we have that front-facing obstacle avoidance, if we have ActiveTrack on the Mini 3 or the Mini 2S, it would sell like hotcakes. I think people would lose their mind over that. They would sell their Mini 2 and definitely get the 2S or the 3. So front-facing sensors make sense. Like I said, replace that front light that we saw on the Mini 2. So we have a look at the Mini 2 here. Probably a better photo. Let's find a better photo. Here we go. So we can see here that the Mini 2 has got that little light on the front there, and it's got the 2 air intakes either side. So that light, yeah, probably not necessary, probably more of a gimmick than anything. So if they remove that and they put that scoop on top, that air scoop, so it's going to get some more air intake to cool down the internals, and then we replace the air intakes there for the sensors, that would make sense, and that's definitely something that's achievable, like in an engineering sense, you would imagine. So that would make sense. And then on top of that, the ActiveTrack is just a software thing. You know, we've seen that with the Mavic Mini. The SDK is available. You can literally get your Mavic Mini, download DroneLink or Litchi or the Maven app, and you can use your Mavic Mini with ActiveTrack. So it's a thing. It's something that's out there already. It's a possibility. It's not something that's like this mystery that you can't do. And from what the rumors and the kind of discussion, the rumblings in the market, the Mini 2 is actually going to see the SDK released around September time. So if that is the case, the Mini 2 will then have ActiveTrack and waypoints. So it makes a lot of sense for that to be the natural progression into their fully fledged, like released 2S or 3. So we're probably going to see ActiveTrack. Yeah, that would be great. The other thing is a lot of drones seem to have like that built-in memory of 8 gigabytes. A lot of DJI drones go with that 8 gigabytes of internal memory or storage. I think maybe, you know, it's probably something they don't care about too much on their smaller drones, but we might see that as well. We might see 8 gigabytes of built-in storage. The other thing is price-wise. I think from what I was seeing, like DroneGator as well, they were talking about this, you know, the possibility of increasing it by 50 to $100. Now, again, it really depends on what we're going to see here, like how much they're going to upgrade the drone, or if it's going to be a slight increase, a slight improvement, a slight tweak. In that case, we could see upwards of maybe $100 increasing in price. But, you know, it depends. If they really push it, it could be a couple of $100 more expensive than the Mini 2. It really depends on what they, you know, actually push with this drone here, or whether they kind of keep it, I guess, safe, but something that's still going to tweak a bit of interest in the community. And we've spoken about the release date as well. So I think from what I can see, there's not too much out there. Again, a lot of this is just speculation and rumors. This prototype looks really clean, and yeah, if that was the actual real drone, I would be very excited. It looks, yeah, really cool. I love that. And that sensor, that camera system looks very similar to like the Mavic Air 2 camera system, which it probably wouldn't be. It would probably be the DJI Osmo Pocket camera system. The Pocket 2 camera system potentially could be integrated into the Mini 3. Now, if that was the case, yeah, it would make a massive improvement in terms of the quality and what you could capture out of your mini drone. And the most like fundamental, the most crucial thing out of this whole potential release is that it needs to be under 250 grams so that they can really target people in those countries where regulations and laws are quite strict. So they want it to be the 249 grams. If they're going to add sensors, if they're going to make, if the camera system is going to be slightly bigger, for example, if the batteries are going to be a little bit heavier, slightly heavier, all of these things are going to add up. So they're going to have to figure out a way to make it 249 grams and still pack a punch. So that's where I'm at with the Mini 3 or the Mini 2S. It's more likely, in my opinion, that it will be the Mini 2S. That makes the most sense to me. Why push it to the point that it's a Mini 3 and they're pushing like 4K 60 and multiple sensors on the drone? I think the most practical thing would be that slight improvement that I've been talking about throughout this video. Have ActiveTrack, have the front-facing sensors, have a slightly improved camera, potentially slightly improved battery system, and people are going to love it. People are going to lose their mind and it's going to sell really well. So yeah, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love your thoughts though in the comments. What do you want to see? What is on your Mini 3 wish list? Everything I've mentioned so far, do all of those sound great to you? Do you want to see everything that I've mentioned in the Mini 3? Or do you think they'll stagger the release of this and release a 2S that's a slight improvement? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to have a fantastic day, and I'll chat to you in the next one. Peace.